What's happened to many selling situations, and I think to communication in general, is that there's a degree of exaggeration going on, posturing, that positioning, I'm somehow better or different than you. And that puts up barriers between people genuinely getting to connect and bond with each other.
Welcome to Get Unstuck and On Target, the weekly podcast that offers senior leaders insights and strategies to not only lead with confidence and vision, but also to achieve groundbreaking results. I'm your host, Mike O'Neill. I coach top-level executives on the power of ethical leadership to forge teams to be as united as they are effective. In each episode, join me for insightful conversations with leaders just like you, providing practical advice to help you get unstuck and propel you and your company forward. Let's get started. Joining me is Dr. Nancy Zare. As the creator of the AlikeAbility System, Nancy shows professional entrepreneurs how to turn 50% of their prospects into clients. Nancy earned her master's and doctorate from Boston College and has authored 7 books, including an Amazon International bestseller. Nancy lives in South Florida, is a student of spirituality and recovery, and volunteers as a foster family for the Farm Dog Rescue. Long-term listeners will remember Nancy from episode 72. Welcome back, Nancy.
Oh my gosh, it's a pleasure to be back. Thank you, Mike. And 72, is that what you said?
It is. And just to put this in perspective, if my numbers are right, this is episode 184.
I know. That's what I was thinking, like over 100 episodes. That means 2 years. So I'm so glad to be back and to talk to the audience. And of course, during this time, you and I have both evolved quite a bit, right? So this is the area I'm sure we're going to delve into and explore.
You know, as a business owner, you and I both have evolved. We've evolved because our customers have asked for that. I don't make it a habit of inviting guests back on, but there's a number of reasons why I asked you. One, what you just did, for those who are watching on YouTube, you got a very charming way about you. 2, you were able to explain concepts in a way that I can really relate to. I love your post. I read them and I find just good practical guidance. And though I did not use this in the introduction, why don't we start with your tagline, if that's the right word, in your profile for LinkedIn. And it reads, Nancy, the LinkedIn Whisperer, Zare, PhD. Tell us more.
Yes. So interestingly enough, I did not create that name tag. It was given to me first by Jojo LaRiccia. She said, you're the LinkedIn Whisperer. Mm-hmm. And then Crystal Hilly actually changed it to the Sales Whisperer. And why did they give me the name Whisperer? Well, as you know, whisperers communicate usually with animals, with, inanimate objects. Well, I communicate or teach the skill of how to communicate with LinkedIn profiles, websites, other material on the web. Communicate in the way, Mike, of identifying what is the personality style that is being promoted or, is coming through the page if we just care to look.
You know, I introduced you as the creator of the AlikeAbility System. For those who are not familiar with that system, walk us through what that is, please.
So AlikeAbility, that's like with an A in front of it. It's not popularity. It's about having the other person say to themselves, wow, you get me, we're alike. So listener, I want you to think for a moment. What would it be like if somebody felt the other person you're speaking to now said to themselves, wow, you get me, we're alike? Would they feel more comfortable? Would they feel more relaxed in your company? Absolutely. And that comfort and that relaxation allows trust to build quickly. And since I talk about selling, everybody has a certain resistance. They put up a wall. They're on guard, especially if it's an employee talking to, a manager or higher up, or in this case, somebody in the suite. Oh my goodness. your heart's pounding, right? So the fact that this person's made you feel comfortable, now your guard drops. And guess what happens? It just opens up the ability to communicate authentically. And hence, you can do business together.
So let me see if I got this right. What you offer is a tool that when people are familiar with that tool, they could predict how the other person might be such that they can tailor their interactions?
Well, predict is an interesting word. And so I wasn't sure I was going to buy into the prediction part, but definitely you will have a sense of how this person is hardwired to communicate. And it's about the communication, Mike, that I think is the value of a likability. More so than selling, a likability is about communication and about communicating in a way that allows both parties to feel connected and feel like they're being authentic. Because this is when true business can take place, as opposed to putting up a front or artificially, having a posture, taking a position. No, it's about being authentic and really connecting on that level.
We touched on, you've also been coined as the sales whisperer, but it seems as if there's a lot of baggage associated with the idea of sales. And I know that you describe how you can be very effective in sales without being salesy. And you just use the term authentic, and that is the importance of authenticity. In today's environment, with all the distractions we have, in what ways have authenticity been compromised?
Well, that is quite the question, because certainly when we are now embracing artificial intelligence, AI tools have been programmed to give what I call a vanilla response, an average kind of middle of the road type of response. And so is that authentic? It's authentic for an AI tool, but it's not authentic people to people. And, sales are done one person to another person. They're not, it's what's happened to many selling situations, and I think to communication in general, is that there's a degree of exaggeration going on. And again, that posturing, that positioning, I'm somehow better or different than you. And that puts up barriers between people genuinely getting to connect and bond with each other. So those are some of my thoughts about, from what you just shared.
With your advanced educational training, with your experience doing what you do, let's go back to the sales situation. Most of your clients, are they selling face-to-face, or is it something different than that nowadays?
I would have to say that the majority of my clients are selling online as opposed to face-to-face. And obviously, since the pandemic, when, we practice social distancing, many of us have found that to be actually more convenient and more expedient to be able to meet people and talk with people online. The thing is, Mike, that there are two ways to talk with people online. What you and I are doing right now is we're in real time communicating. The listener, you are watching or listening to a replay. You're not communicating with us in real time, but you are communicating with us. There are thoughts going in your mind, and you're pondering what we're saying, and you're maybe adding a refutation like, no, I don't agree, or you're saying, yes, I do agree, and validation. And so there's a dialogue going on in your mind. The challenge is that Mike and I don't know what's happening inside your mind unless you're kind enough to drop a message in the comments section, which of course we hope you do. And then we have a conversation, but it's not happening in real time. It's happening in delayed time. And so those are two different communications, Mike, where we're online and we're not in person, and yet we are definitely communicating. You and I mean, you're nodding, I'm making faces. Clearly you and I are joined right now and communicating. But then there's this delayed communication where we don't know what is going on in someone's mind. We might speculate, or as you say, we even predict, but we don't know exactly. And so there's a time delay, and that time delay can interfere with understanding thoroughly what someone's thinking or feeling.
I have to go back to something that I said very much at the very top of this podcast, and is how to help your clients, typically entrepreneurs, turn 50% of their prospects into clients. That's a staggering number, and I know that you wouldn't say that unless you had it to back it up. What is it about what you do for your clients that really differentiates that they could look forward to such a high conversion rate?
So there are three things that I practice and that perhaps differentiate me from other people who help folks with selling. The first is to ask for permission, because when you do that and the prospect says yes, you never worry about being pushy, aggressive, or salesy, because they have invited you and consented to your communicating with them. The second is to speak naturally, conversationally, without a script. And it sounds easy to do, Mike, but as you and I mentioned about the fact that you are such a great conversationalist and a great listener, it takes work. This is not an easy thing that you can snap your fingers. And I know you work at it, and you are superb as a listener and a communicator because of that. So that's principle number 2. The third one is where the 50% comes from, and that is to adjust what you say to match the prospect's personality style. And there are 4 distinct personality styles that are probably biologically programmed in us. And so when you know what that style is and you adjust what you say, again, you're not being disingenuous by doing so. You're actually being very authentic by using the language and the words that this person will respond to easily. And so that's the third principle, which then allows the prospect to say, wow, I feel comfortable with you, and now we can go forward and do business together.
You mentioned the 4 styles, and I don't think we have the time to go through these in a very detail, but just for reference, because I know people are going to want to learn more about that. Can you give us an overview of what those 4 styles are, please?
So many of your listeners, I'm sure, are familiar with DISC or Myers-Briggs. There's animals, colors, objects, just words, etc. I actually use numbers to reference these 4 styles. And the numbers relate to how many contacts, touch points are needed before the person can make up their mind. And this is 35 years of research that was done by my colleague. I went ahead and continued the work that she had started. Mary Peckus got this from her telemarketing career. And so I labeled these styles with numbers, as I said, 2, 4, 6, and 8. And because I'm focused on selling, I think of them as the buyer number 2, buyer 4, buyer 6, and buyer 8. So what are the distinguishing characteristics? Well, first, look at the numbers. The person who's a number 2 is making up their mind in only 1, at most 2 contacts, whereas buyer number 8 is taking at least 8 or more contacts. So we're getting a differentiation between fast decisions and slower decisions, right? Again, what is it that number 2 is paying attention to that number 8 is not, and vice versa. So number 2, they're looking at speed, efficiency, results, get it done, do it now, action, off my plate. Very different mindset than on number 8, who is thinking, I need more information. I have questions. I need scientific information and data and touch points. I need that statistics before I can, and I want to know return on investment. So again, very different ways of thinking and proceeding. So in a nutshell, and again, the 4 and the 6 are different as well. Those are the 4 styles that I'm referencing.
We are recording this both audio and video. For those who are watching you and watching this on video, they see something they probably don't see. Right now, describe what is it that they would be seeing if they can't see you.
Well, I'm wearing my blue hat. And as Mike knows, I wear hats all the time. In fact, if you go look me up on LinkedIn, you'll see me with hats. Some people refer to me as the hat lady, and that's just fine. There are 4 different color hats that I wear based upon the 4 styles.
Mm-hmm.
I will also share with you, the listener, and I don't often give away this information. I'm 5'1". I love to speak in front of audiences. And when I do, I like to actually walk amidst the audience.
Mm.
Well, at 5'1", and you're walking, on the floor and they're sitting, they're not seeing you so well. So a hat, especially a boldly colored hat, will make you distinctive. And so hence that's the secret of the hats. However, if you ask me professionally, I will tell you it's that entrepreneurs wear many hats, and the hat they dislike the most is the marketing and sales piece.
And let's go ahead and follow that. What is it about sales and marketing that business leaders, business owners sometimes really struggle with? Any sense of why that might be the case?
It is because we think of sales and marketing as, convincing people to do something against their will. And that's so far from the truth. It isn't about convincing people to buy things and give up their money for whatever service or product we're offering. It's a really good salesperson looks at what are your needs, what are your wants, what are your specifications? Does what I offer fit any of this? And if it's not a good fit, then can I refer you to someone I know who may be a better fit? If it is a fit, then it's my obligation to let you know how I could help resolve and bring you the results you're looking for. So good selling is really about good communication skills, which is what we've been talking about. But you ask why people, maybe shy away from it. Mike, they haven't been trained in it.
Mm.
And most of us, I have a PhD. I didn't get trained in this either. And lo and behold, when you set up your business, you established your business, you are selling, you are influencing others to take an action. And no one is giving you formalized training around this topic. And so you may try to give it away to someone, who says they know how to do it. Marketing will help generate visibility and credibility for what you're doing, but they don't make sales. So then you think, okay, I've got to go find someone who does the selling part. And again, the selling part, it's not about convincing. It's about making sure there's a good match between what the prospect is saying and what it is we offer.
Now, you described kind of a shift in mindset, and that is it's not convincing. It's just seeing, is this a good match? You didn't say it, but the implication is, and if it's a good match, great. If it's not, that's okay. I don't want to gloss over this because I think this is so critically important. And what I think I understood is that your approach, you've reduced it to numbers and colors, is that what you are teaching, coaching, is for people to be able to kind of get a sense of the person who they either are or will be interacting with, is that it may be one only needs 2 touches, one might need 8. It doesn't mean that one's better than the other. It just means that if you're willing, see if I'm hearing this correctly, if you're willing to adapt, that is, acknowledge it will take more touches, to recognize that when you show a willingness to adapt to how they prefer to be interacted with. I love that you use the word, it comes across as authentic and genuine, not salesy.
If I may, Mike, I want to give an example that's unrelated, but maybe the listener can relate to. And that is you've decided to invite a very special person to your home for a home-cooked meal. And you think about what it is that you love and that you prepare and is your favorite dish, and you go ahead and you serve it up. If you have not asked the other person if they have food allergies, if they're on a limited or restricted diet, if there are other issues around their intake of food, you may be serving them the wrong meal. And again, because in your heart, you care and want to, obviously, you want to be the best host or hostess you can. You want to prepare a great meal, one that they go home saying, wow, this was a super, exceptional experience. And that's what it's like in communication. As you said, Mike, if I understand that this number 8 buyer, it needs more touch points, they need more information, they need research, they need white papers, they need websites. If I understand that and I provide it lovingly, with my full heart, we have connected authentically, and they feel like I prepared the best meal I could. If I know that the number 2 buyer wants it done quickly, and I immediately say, here's what we can do, here's what it's going to cost, we can start today. It's like, whew, now you are, again, preparing the best meal I could sample.
Nancy, we met several years ago. I believe I remember the setting, but it was a setting by which people came together to get to know each other better. And I've kind of tracked you over these years. Let's put your entrepreneur hat on. And for those who are not watching, Nancy did just that. As a business owner, have you found that what you do and how you do it needed to change because of marketplace changes?
Absolutely. And you even said earlier when we were talking about the fact, yet we've known each other for a certain length of time, that both of us have evolved. And like you, Mike, I too have been enjoying and watching you evolve, listening to your podcasts. You have amazing guests. But again, you are an exceptional communicator. And listener, I know that you are here because of the fact you enjoy the fact that Mike draws out from his guests information and points of view that you would not get normally because of his skill as a good interviewer. So yes, my business has evolved. I started off, Mike, thinking that I would teach. And that comes from the fact that I am a professor. I retired young from being a professor at Springfield College in Springfield, Mass. And I thought, that's what I know. I teach adults. And I actually did teach adults. We had a program for working adults to get an accelerated bachelor's and master's degree. So I enjoyed working with adults. And it turns out, Mike, again, that number 2 buyer comes to mind. They actually don't want to learn. They want you to do it for them. And so I began to do it for them, which is how the LinkedIn Whisper and the Sales Whisper have kind of come into fruition. That was not my intention when I first started. But now I understand the value of being able to respond to my clients and give them what they need. And one of the areas that has particularly evolved is helping to identify the ideal buyer persona. Again, in working with my clients and working with my referral partners, this is an area that for many people is problematic. They don't know how to niche. They heard that the riches are in the niches or the niches, if you're from however you pronounce it, but they don't know who that is for them. They're very vague, or they think demographically, well, it's a certain age and a certain gender and a certain whatever. I am a psychologist, and I think in terms of the psychographics. What is that person like psychologically? And again, I tried to differentiate between the number 2 buyer, the number 8 buyer. They're very different people. And hence, we need to niche or find that ideal buyer persona by understanding who we work with best and who is the best suited for what we do.
That's phenomenal explanation. Your business evolved. I know my business evolved. When I started the podcast, it was the outgrowth of a webinar series. We were actually doing a live webinar series every week on Thursdays morning at 10 o'clock. And it was fascinating because you would assemble a panelist and you'd have this lively conversation. They lasted about an hour, but everything was dependent on the technology working for all involved. The thing I love about the podcast is, one, we do it on a timetable that's best for the guest. And what I'm learning in the process, and I really appreciate your earlier comments, is the nature of my work continues to evolve. Yes, I do consult, particularly on the HR side, the people side of growing businesses. Yes, we do deliver training. Yes, we do compensation analysis. But the thing that I'm being asked more and more for is the coaching piece. And I really appreciate your comment, because I view this as an opportunity for me, if I do my job right as a podcast host, is I want to feature you. I want the listener to learn about you. I want them to be able to hear what is needed to be heard. And the only thing I know to do is to ask insightful questions where that comes out. And I hope what I'm saying is making sense, but I really appreciate your compliment. But what I would say is this somewhat is an opportunity for me to model my coaching style. And that is, it's about the client.
And I would agree that for me, this podcast is not so much about me, although I appreciate that you're taking the time to highlight what I do, etc. But it's really about the audience. It's about you, the listener, tuning in, because Mike, in his full heart, is trying to give you information and encouragement and a mindset that will, position you for success. And he's inviting people in because they have little pieces of the puzzle that can add to your capability and your confidence. And hence, both of us are here for you, the listener. This is why we're doing what we're doing.
One of the things that I'll get off this, but one thing I've found is people kind of go, why do you do the podcast? One, it brings me in contact with fascinating people like Dr. Zare. Two, I learn from each and every guest. But three, I love the challenge of trying to anticipate what is the listener most interested in. And what I'm finding is, now we've been doing this for a while, we've had listeners download in over 50 countries, which is remarkable. But what I love is the feedback from listeners. And so I want to stick this plug in. I haven't never done this before. If you're listening and there are the types of things that you would like to see come out in these episodes, please let me know. We'll make sure we'll try to make that happen. Nancy, this question is coming. It's only the only pre-planned question we have, but you've been doing this for a good while. You have a knack as a psychologist to understand things at a level that a lot of people might not be able to, but you're sharing that understanding. Would you mind share an example where either you or perhaps a client got stuck? And what did it take to get unstuck?
So I'm thinking of several clients, and I'm going to combine it into one story. And this client met a person in-person networking event. They hit it off, had a wonderful conversation. They followed it up with, that week or the next week with a phone call and so forth. And it was clear that the prospect was quite interested in her services, so much so that he asked for a proposal. And off it went. And then when she followed up, there was no conversation. There was no return. There was the messaging. Everything died. It went crickets. And as you can imagine, that was extremely discouraging to her. Like, what happened? We had this great relationship and now it's silence. Well, we looked up the personality style of the prospect. And the personality style was, I'm going to use the word number 4, buyer. I haven't talked about the number 4 during this broadcast, but the number 4 is somebody who's very heart-centered, very personal, cares about causes, really focused on relationships. And they had a great relationship when they met in person and when they had their follow-up conversations. But the proposal she sent was very 6, number 6 style. The number 6 style is very formal, very legalese, very much a process, very much a system. So now think about it, listener. Here's somebody who is with their heart connecting and then gets this legal contract that feels cold and, very stilted. He didn't respond. So when I pointed that out to her, she needed to change her cover letter to explain, look, this is a, template I'm sending you. It doesn't reflect our relationship. She needed to do something like that, Mike. Or in this case, because it was too late to send a cover letter, she needed to contact him and let him know about the error, the mistake that she had made. And by doing that, it restored the relationship, which later allowed them to do work together. So knowing someone's style is so fundamental. And if you are stuck with a person, and it could be, it could be your family member, or it could be, again, an employee or someone, a vendor, a supplier. Take a look at the personality styles. What's your style conveying? And what's the style of the other person? There's a good chance that they're somehow in conflict. And if you simply shift your language, you will find that it's like stepping in front of the photoelectric cell in a store. The door magically opens and you can walk in.
That's a fantastic illustration. Thank you. Nancy, as you reflect on this conversation, what do you want our listeners to have as takeaways, please?
Well, be a good listener. Be a good communicator. And to be a good communicator requires listening. And Mike is a great example of a good listener. So, listen and watch and emulate, because this fellow has it nailed down. And so if you want to be a good communicator, and who doesn't when you think about it? We learn to talk and we, vocalize all sorts of sounds, and eventually we figure out that these sounds equal words, and then we put them together in a sentence. But communication is far more than that. It's about really connecting with the other person in a way that's genuine and authentic. And the way you do that is to, again, suspend who you are and be present for the other person. Serve them the best home-cooked meal you can.
I love that recap. Nancy, before we wrap up, I like to invite our listeners to reflect on a question that affects all leaders. And that is, have you ever wondered why people choose to follow your lead? Is it out of mere obligation, or do they genuinely believe in your vision? It's true. Leadership thrives on clarity and confidence. It's not just about command. It's about cultivating practical solutions that drive real bottom line results. I invite you to visit bench-builders.com for personalized leadership strategies that leverage the Fortune 500 insights I was able to gain when I was in the corporate role. We're here to elevate your leadership potential and help you make substantial progress towards your goals. So I invite you to lead in a manner that inspires people to follow because they're drawn to your vision, not merely because they really have to do so. So I encourage you to think about how you can lead with clarity and confidence, attracting followers not out of obligations, but inspiration. Nancy, your insights, again, have been invaluable. Thank you for joining us.
Well, it's been my pleasure. Thank you so much. And to the listener, take heed. This fellow knows what he's talking about. He's going to be there for you in a way that you can only just begin to imagine.
Oh, man, you're so kind. Now, for folks who want to reach out and engage with you further with questions or whatever, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
It's easy to find me on LinkedIn, Nancy Zare, as long as you spell my last name correctly. It rhymes with care, starts with the last letter of the alphabet, Z-A-R-E, or Z if you're from, the UK or Canada. Or, of course, they can also go to my website, which is nancyzare.com.
Excellent. Thank you, Nancy.
To your sales success.
I also want to thank our subscribers for tuning in, and I hope today's discussion provides you with some insights to help you get unstuck and on target. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Get Unstuck and On Target. I hope you've gained insights to help you lead with confidence and drive your organization forward. Remember, at Bench Builders, we're committed to your success, your leadership excellence, and your strategic growth. If you've enjoyed our conversation today, please leave a review, rate, and subscribe to keep up with our latest episodes. This show really grows when listeners like you share it with others. Who do you know who needs to hear what we talked about today? Until next time, I encourage you to stay focused on the target and continue to break new ground on your leadership path.